Jambo, namaste, konnichiwa, kemcho, bonjour, and greetings to everyone. Oh, my phone is ringing. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this call. I think I've nailed the interview, and this is the call. Hello, this is Aarti speaking.
Hi, Aarti. This is your recruiter. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm just calling to let you know, Aarti, that we interviewed several candidates and we decided to move forward with another candidate. I'd like to thank you for your interest in our organization, and we would like to wish you all the best in your job hunt.
Rejection, rejection, rejection. It is frustrating, right? Thank you for joining me today at the virtual BSides Vancouver conference as I cover the topic, challenging barriers to entry and rejection. In terms of agenda, for the next 25 minutes, I will cover some of the common barriers, followed by a few tips and tricks on how you can overcome these barriers. So a little bit about me. My name is Aarti Gadhia, and my purpose is to drive change and make an impact. I've dedicated my entire career to breaking down barriers and boundaries to achieve equality for underrepresented groups in STEM and in leadership. And I've done this through starting up 2 organizations, Stand Out to Lead and She Sharing Her Empowerment. I also received the award last year as a top 20 women in cybersecurity in Canada. And I'm one of the authors of the book, The Rise of Cyber Women, Volume 2. I currently work for BugCrowd and recently was appointed as the board member for Observe ID. I volunteer my time on cybersecurity boards such as ISACA, She Leads Tech Vancouver, OS Vancouver Board, and I'm the board advisor for WISIS Western Canada affiliate. Outside of work, I enjoy cooking, video editing, and as you can see from this picture, I enjoy riding my motorcycle. It has been a little over a year gone by since the world went into shutdown. From personal experience, I can tell you that this has been a bumpy ride. I've seen many individuals lose their jobs, and at the same time, I've seen new opportunities created as organizations are finding new ways to conduct their business. And I hope that flexible work hours and work from anywhere will become the new norm. As you heard on the phone call earlier, I'm sure each and every one of us have faced this rejection during our career. I'd now like to hear from you all. And in the chat box, please share the barriers you may have experienced when applying for jobs in the cybersecurity industry. Is it A, you do not have technical skills? B, you do not have relevant experience? C, we found someone with more experience? D, your location is a barrier? Or E, other? If you choose other, please share the barriers you may have faced. I know in my situation, I couldn't get into leadership positions because I was based in Vancouver. And we've all seen today through the pandemic, the world has changed and the way we do business has changed. So let's understand what the problem is. So there's an article from InfoSec magazine that shared that the cybersecurity skills shortage for the first time fell last year from 4.1 million to 3.2 million. 56% of the respondents said that their organizations are at risk due to cybersecurity staff shortages. So how are we going to find more? How are we going to find that 3.2 million gap? Is the problem that there is a shortage in cybersecurity professionals? Or is the challenge we can't find the right talent? Another interesting stat, according to Pew Research in 2019, in the workforce, there were 29.5 million women with a bachelor's degree versus 29.3 million men. With such a large pool of talent, why is it so difficult to find 3.2 million? In simple math, there are 7.8 billion in the world, people in the world, 60 million in the workforce that have a degree, and all we need is 3.2 million to fill the gap. Well, the solution to solve the 3.2 million shortage in cyber skills, the challenge isn't that we don't have enough cybersecurity professionals. The challenge is that we're limiting ourselves and we need to look beyond the traditional way of hiring. And I'm here to tell you, increasing diversity and breaking down these barriers will solve the problem. Last year, I ran a fireside chat with 3 women from Twitch, HP, and Norton LifeLock. And all 4 of us fell into cybersecurity by accident. We had project management, engineering, accounting, and economics, and we're all here in cybersecurity. And secondly, some of you earlier mentioned one of your barriers you faced is lack of technical skills. If the adversary does not have a barrier, why are we creating barriers? Why do we limit applicants only if they have a certain degree? Unfortunately, I have seen some hiring managers shortlist candidates based on technical requirements. And this is one of the reasons why there is a cybersecurity shortage. We have a local example here where an individual moved from HR to join a technical role on the SecOps team, as she was great at problem solving and understanding human behavior. And she applied that into this role. Most hiring managers probably would have not even considered that resume, and that would have been rejected or not even interviewed. The solution is to rethink your recruitment strategy on candidates based on their soft skills. Red hat, blue hat, green hat, or whether you've studied HR or cybersecurity, or whether you wanted to be a stockbroker or an engineer, each and every one of us can join the hunt and solve this problem. So now let's take a look at the solution. How can you prepare yourself to land an interview? I'll share 5 tips. The first one is referral. First and foremost, reach out to your network. LinkedIn is a great way to see who's connected to who. If you see a position, for example, see who you're connected with at that organization. Either someone in your network works there, or one of your connections will know the hiring manager, if you know who the hiring manager is. Make the ask to your connection if they can refer you. An interesting tip on the referral program. The private sector has an internal referral program. So for example, here at Bugcrowd, if I refer you, I get paid a referral fee. There's some positions I can earn a referral fee of up to $6,000 US. So there is an incentive for your connection to refer you if they have that internally within the organization. You cannot apply first and then reach out to me and ask me for a referral. And of course, we need to know each other before I can refer you. A great question to ask your connection is if they have a referral program and if they would be willing to refer you. And like I mentioned earlier, make sure your connection, you know your connection, and ask them for details about who will interview you, what the process is, the personality of the interviewer, and something that nobody else would know so you can prepare yourself for the interview. I'll cover more details on how to connect in my last tip. But in most cases, a referral guarantees you at least a first stage interview. If you don't get that first stage interview, ask your referral for feedback, as that will help you. Second is build your brand. When you think of brands, you'll typically think about products, retail, businesses, celebrities, or athletes. But did you know that with every interaction you have with your network, whether this is through a conversation or through social media or through your project work, you're building your personal brand? Have you ever wondered what impact you can have when you build your personal brand? What opportunities it can bring? A great quote from Jeff Bezos: "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." A strong brand is important as you build your professional career. In today's world, it can be daunting to build your personal brand, as people are quick to form an impression of you. It is human nature to form an opinion, and according to research, it takes 7 seconds to make first impression. And as you build your brand, you will notice that opportunities will arise. Use your brand to land job roles, speaker slots, and industry recognition. Let me give you an example. In 2019, I started submitting talks on the topic, there is no cybersecurity skills shortage. And they were rejected. And I know people knew me, but not as a speaker. I didn't give up and I submitted to BSides Calgary. And through that talk, people started seeing me as a speaker. And my talks are starting to get accepted because of the brand that I'm building. Your brand will create opportunities for you, whether it is in the form of job roles, speaking slots, or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. Some of you mentioned technical skills as a barrier, and I will share another example. As someone I mentored studied media, she became interested in cybersecurity and started a YouTube videos explaining how to find bugs and how she started her bug bounty journey. The videos helped her build her brand, and she now has 30,000 followers. And while she does not have a technical degree, she landed an interview at a job offer as an application security engineer because the hiring manager saw her brand, and her brand removed the barrier of a lack of a technical degree. I have a talk coming up that you'll see on LinkedIn, building your personal brand, and I'll share more details on how you can build your personal brand. But over to this third tip, which is network. And network through volunteering opportunities. Get involved at local security groups such as BSides, WSIS Western Canada, Affiliate, ISACA, OS, and many more. Audience, question for you all. Please feel free to share any other volunteering opportunities in the chat window. Share this with everybody. If you enjoy speaking or submitting CFPs, or if you enjoy writing, or you can help with content by submitting blogs, or help the organizers with video editing, or even workshops, volunteer. I heard during last week's conference with VIPS conference, one of the women on the panel mentioned that through volunteering on ISACA, it helped her with many opportunities. Volunteer and network at these conferences. You never know, you could meet someone today at BSides conference who has an opening on their team, and you now have a connection who can refer you without having to apply formally. Tip number 4, take the time to find a mentor and a sponsor. Many security chapters locally offer a mentoring program. I ask so many individuals, do you have a mentor? And they say no. In fact, I conducted a survey to find out why. And 25% of the respondents say they do not have enough time in the day. And the other 25% said they weren't sure how to approach someone. Take the time to invest in yourself. All you need is 1 hour once a month. Find the right mentor. Don't find a mentor because you want a promotion or a job in their company. The investment in a mentor is to see what you don't see in yourself. Their guidance will help you land an interview. I would also suggest that you find a sponsor within the organization, as they will help promote your brand. The sponsor will help you without you making the ask. In my case, I started submitting CFPs to larger conferences where I am competing against hundreds of submissions. I started seeking out for a mentor. One of the conferences offered the mentorship program. I met with 2 mentors. In the last month, the sessions have been so valuable. I learned so much about writing an abstract. I don't know if in future my talks will get accepted, but there's so much I learned that I didn't know. A mentor won't tell you what to do, but they will help guide and help you see things differently. Tip number 5 is connect with the interviewer. Think of the end in mind. Therefore, during the interview process, make it a conversation and try to connect with the interviewer. Take the time to read through their LinkedIn profile. A friend of mine was getting interviews. She had recently moved and she was getting interviews, but she just wasn't getting that offer job. And I was working with her to try and help her. As I mentioned, she'd moved from Africa to Canada and either was being told, we found someone else with more experience, or sometimes as an immigrant, you may hear, you don't have Canadian experience. As a new immigrant, sometimes it takes time to connect and build your network. I know I faced that because I moved from Kenya here in 2004. As that individual was preparing for an interview, I asked her a little question. Tell me a little bit about who is going to interview you. And she focused on their experience, their role that they took, and I paused and I suggested, let's look at their LinkedIn profile. And we saw this individual was originally from South Africa, who had moved to Canada in 2001. My advice was connect through that experience, as he would also have gone through that experience of struggling to get a job and get settled. And it worked. She started that way. She connected with the interviewer. And her interview went smooth. They were able to go back to the early days of when you first moved into this country and what they faced and how they landed a job. And they were able to connect on so many different things. And my advice is when you prepare for an interview, find something you have in common with that individual. It could be a hobby, or sometimes you could see that on LinkedIn, you could see some of their posts that they are submitting. For example, my post, everyone knows I'm passionate about diversity, and you'll see that in my posts. When someone reaches out to me about diversity, I'm all ears, I'm all excited, I want to hear more, I want to talk. And I'd like to share some sample closing questions when you're going through an interview. In sales, we use this term ABC, always be closing. So when you've landed your interview, how do you close and how do you end your interview? During the interview, validate the criteria. What are the top 5 things you're looking for in a successful candidate? When they ask you a question, be clear and concise and validate that you have addressed their question. At the end of the interview, ask these few simple questions. Do you have any red flags or any areas of concerns that I can address? If they say yes, gather feedback and address each one of those concerns. For example, I was once told you don't have relevant experience for selling into commercial accounts. And my experience was working with the public sector. I addressed that question right away with examples and then took the interviewer to understand how I go about closing deals because I'm in sales. And I pulled up a reference quote from one of my customers, very well known, and I showed it to the interviewer. Ask them another question. Who else are they interviewing? How do you compare against them? Get to know your competition. If you have connected with the interviewer, well, they will share details. Trust me. I've had individuals say, well, this is what it is. I've got 4 other candidates. And you ask them, how do you rank against them? Third one is, if they say they don't have any concerns or red flags, that's your time to close. Ask them what the next stage is in the interview. And then ask them, will you support me in the next stage of the interview? This is where you're gaining commitment from them, gaining their support. If they say yes, and you're meeting someone else, ask them for advice or a little background about the next interviewer. This will help you know if they are your champion. Ask them when you will hear back for a meeting for that next interview with the next individual. If they don't know, set up a schedule in a week's time and say, if I don't hear back from you, Are you okay if I schedule 15 minutes in a week's time to get a status update? You will see many people will say sure. They're not going to say no, especially if you've connected well, they like you, they've agreed that they're supporting you in the next stage. Never leave an interview without a next step. And lastly, don't forget to take down their email address and phone number and send them an email thanking them. In your email, take the time to highlight what you enjoyed about the conversation. Remind them of something unique about that chat that they liked, something that you liked about their style. And then end the email with your agreed next steps, including, don't forget, including thanking them that they are supporting you in the next stage because they agreed. These are some of the questions that can help you stand out from all the other candidates and help you close so that you can get that offer letter. Now, I hope that during your closing questions, it will give you an indication on whether you will go to the next stage or not. And reality is that you may not get every job offer. In most cases, your gut will tell you if the interview went well or not. And when you do get that rejection email or call, like you heard earlier on, ask them for a debrief. We're all here to learn. Listen to their feedback. And in some cases, if there is an unconscious bias, that is when you may want to educate the interviewer. For example, a few years ago, in an interview during the closing questions, the red flag in my interview with somebody else, the red flag that the individual who was interviewing me for a position, I was informed that my location was a barrier. I'm based in Vancouver, and they wanted someone based out of Toronto. And the role was traveling all over Canada to meet clients. And that individual wouldn't accept that I was based in Vancouver. And the only way I would get the offer job was if I moved to Toronto. I didn't want to move. I challenged the interviewer and asked them if location was more important than the skill set or the right culture fit. Their answer was that they have always hired based on location. So then I asked them, hey, I'm curious, how would a local rep in Toronto manage accounts in Montreal or Canada or Calgary? And they mentioned that they would fly or do a remote Zoom call. And that's when I questioned, well, why wouldn't you hire a rep in Vancouver who could do the same thing and fly to Toronto or cover over a Zoom? I educated the interviewer and shared something that somebody had said to me when they hired me and didn't care where I was based. And that individual shared with me and said, that manager shared with me, for me, what is important in a candidate is not their location, but it is who will take us to the finish line. And I shared that with the interviewer. In the end, the interviewer could not accept this. And for me, that shows the culture of the company. It shows me more about the individual. And this is not the right company for me. In the end, we both agreed this is not the right fit for either one of us. And that's how we ended the conversation. So sometimes you may have to self-reject the opportunity. You may get the barrier of technical skills. And we're starting to see an increase in awareness of the importance of soft skills in the workplace in our industry. If a red flag is technical skills, share some examples of the soft skills you can bring that will overcome this barrier. Show your interest in taking some courses. Show your willingness that you're interested in learning more. And as I bring it back to the topic, which is challenging barriers to entry and rejection, I'd like to conclude that there is no cybersecurity skill shortage. We can solve the 3.2 million shortage. And the way to solve this is to break down the barriers to entry. If the adversary does not have any barriers, why should we? Secondly, I highlighted 5 tips to help you land an interview. Apply those tips. And let me know your feedback. I'm curious. I'm interested to see your feedback. And lastly, remember that an interview is both ways. While you're being interviewed, you're also interviewing the organization. You will know whether the organization is a right fit or not. Trust your gut and educate if you see there's an unconscious bias. We need to challenge the status quo, but challenge it in a way that matters. If you are reviewing candidates, as a hiring manager, I ask you to broaden your criteria. Hire based on potential and see what skills the candidate is going to bring to your team. Diversity is important. And my hope is to inspire everyone that no matter what you're faced with, stay authentic, speak up, and don't be afraid of the outcome. Look, Rome wasn't built in a day. I know we cannot close the gap overnight, but with every one of us speaking up and doing our part, it will happen over time. But it will take each and every one of us, or it won't happen at all. To conclude, as I bring this back to my purpose, which is to be a change agent, to close the gap for underrepresented groups in STEM and in leadership, I'd like to share a quote. My quote: gender diversity should not be a woman's problem to solve, or an HR issue to handle, nor a legislation to be implemented. And we shouldn't wait for a movement to occur. It should be everybody's problem to solve. I'd now like to open this up to questions, and if you'd like to connect with me directly on LinkedIn. To end, shukriya, asante sana, merci beaucoup, arigato gozaimasu, and thank you.